Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel, Vedic Living. It's really nice to see you guys back. It's been a while since I made a video. I have been traveling, but I'm back and I'll be back on schedule with all the videos that will give you predictions for the upcoming months. So when I got back, I thought, the first video I wanted to make was regarding the Saturn retrograde. Because as you know, Saturn is retrograde right now as of June 17th. It will be retrograde till November 4th. This is very impactful because Saturn is a large planet in the sky and it is the karmic planet. So when it goes retrograde, it brings back lessons, karmic lessons from our past and from our past lives. And, it's very impactful every time this happens. So I want to give you a lot of details and also give you sign-by-sign predictions as to what this means for you personally in your chart. Now, before we go forward, make sure you visit my website, www.vedicliving.com, if you want to book a reading. And the other thing that I want to remind you is that when you're at my website, make sure you sign up for my free newsletter. I do send out a free newsletter every month with all the predictions. And sometimes I send out ad hoc newsletters too with, major things that are happening in the sky. And also on my website, you will find the free chart calculator. You can use this chart calculator, enter your information, and find your ascendant or moon sign. Because as I talk in this video, I'm going to give you the sign-by-sign predictions for Saturn retrograde. So this means you need to know your ascendant sign, which is your rising sign or your lagna, or your moon sign. If you don't know your time of birth, you should know your moon sign. So if you go to my website, you can easily find this information out. When you enter the information in the chart calculator, it will give you your chart, and the sign that says ASC stands for ascendant or lagna. So that's your lagna or your rising sign. And like I said, if you don't have your time of birth, then go by your moon sign. So wherever the moon is in the chart, it says MO. That's your moon sign. So now, without further ado, let's go ahead and look at what Saturn retrograde means. Now, I do want you to understand that this is not an uncommon, transit, but it is very powerful because Saturn has a very important meaning when it comes to Vedic astrology. It rules karma. It rules all the effects and results of our past actions, be it past lifetimes or past in this lifetime. Either way, it does bring back all the results of those actions. So a lot of times when Saturn goes retrograde in the world, we see world leaders and celebrities, people whose lives are public. You will see that, the things that they did in the past that they thought they got away with, it comes back to haunt them. There's a new inquisition on something, or there's a case is reopened, or there's always something that comes back to haunt them. So that's what the Saturn retrograde is. It's, it's the time to face the music, right? Everything that we've done in the past, it's time to clean up that karma, because if you don't clean it up now, you have to come back in another lifetime to do that, right? So we might as well do everything while we are here on the planet at this time. So other than that, Saturn does rule government. It rules elderly people. So you'll see a lot of things around Medicare and Medicaid and those kind of government laws during this time. Politicians. So, as you know, it's a very active political kind of scenario we have going on here in the United States with the upcoming elections. Saturn does rule work and discipline. So your day-to-day work, your corporate job, your career, your business, whatever that is, that work you put into it is ruled by Saturn. And the discipline and the diligence you have in getting through your work, that's ruled by Saturn too. Now, Saturn rules the sign Aquarius and the sign Capricorn. Now, Aquarius is all about improving humanity, right? It's about the group. It's about the collective conscious. It's about bringing a better world. You know, they are the visionaries. They want to do things that are that make life better for humanity. You know, they don't think about the single person, the one person. They are thinking about the collective. So that's Aquarius. And it also rules Capricorn. Capricorn rules achievement. It rules things that you do, your work that you do in your day-to-day life, because it is the natural 10th house. Now, because both these signs have to do with day-to-day work and accomplishment and achievement, this particular retrograde in your personal lives and in the public, like in the world events, you will see that it will bring about a lot of words, you know. So when I say words, it's like reevaluating, reorganizing, reprioritizing, reassessing, reflecting. A lot of that will happen. Decisions you might have taken in the past thinking, this is it, this is what I'm going to do. Saturn retrograde makes you rethink that. And it's good, because Saturn is coming in to say, hey, let's think about this a little bit more, right? Let's not jump into this. Let's not be impulsive. Saturn hates impulsive behavior. It holds us back because it wants us to think more about the action that we are going to take or the word we are going to speak. Because two things that you can never take back in this lifetime is that action that you do or the word that you speak. So Saturn does not allow you to do that without thinking again. So it does bring about a lot of that, you know, rework kind of scenarios where you will reassess a lot of things you did in the past, which is good. It's okay. It may seem like a waste of time sometimes, especially for, you know, us Aries rising people, or, you know, my moon is in Aries. Or, you know, if you're Leo, or, you know, we don't like to wait, right? We like things to happen quick. So Saturn retrograde is particularly tough for us because of that. But it is required. It's required to relook at certain things to make sure it's being done the right way. Now, it will give us a sense of our own sense of confidence. You know, Saturn rules your confidence because, you know, especially, you know, because of its mythological association with the sun, which if you go back to my first few videos on YouTube that I did a few years ago, I did talk about the mythology of the sun and Saturn. It does rule, you know, that sense of confidence, sense of coming into your own, you know, standing on your own feet, your own authority, your own accomplishment and achievement. So sometimes when Saturn is retrograde, we feel like we are not recognized for the work that we are doing. So especially when I come to some of the zodiac predictions that I'll, you know, you will see some of those will have that flavor, where when Saturn goes retrograde, you start thinking, wait a minute, I've been doing all this hard work and nobody's appreciating me. I'm not getting my due recognition. So that is another area that'll come up when Saturn is retrograde. And like I said, world events, politics, people whose lives are public, you will see things that they did in the past come back to kind of, you know, get resolved. So that's another thing that you'll see too with politicians and celebrities and all of that. So with that being said, that's overall description of Saturn retrograde. Now let's go to the sign by sign prediction. So for Aries ascendant, if you're an Aries ascendant, Saturn is retrograde currently. And as you know, Saturn is retrograde in Aquarius, right? So it is retrograde in your 11th house. Saturn has been in your 11th house since January of this year. So you have been seeing some effects on your friend circles, your social connections, your organizations that you're involved with, your groups, all of that. But while Saturn is retrograde, it's an altogether different story. So whenever Saturn goes retrograde, like I said, it wants you to reassess certain things. So now that it's in the 11th house for you as an Aries ascendant, Saturn is asking you to reassess and review the kind of connections that you have, the way your friends or your associations, how they impact you and how you impact them. It's moving backwards. Saturn is moving backwards and it's in the 11th house of community. So it will highlight issues in that area. You may have certain fallouts with some friends. You may see certain sides of people that you have never seen before. You thought of them a certain way. Now you see them in a totally different light. They may say something, or you may say something, which is, going to affect that relationship, and test it. Whenever you think of Saturn, think of testing. It tests the foundations of a relationship, and being in your 11th house, it's testing your friendships. So get ready to start looking closely at these associations that you have, your friends, your associates, your social connections. And by the end of this transit, by November, there may be some weeding out of unhealthy relationships, right? Because Saturn, at the end of the day, it doesn't let you keep that which is not going to help you grow. Anything that's holding you back, Saturn will take it away by the end of this. So, whatever those lessons are, observe what Saturn is showing you and let things work out and play out the way it's playing out. And by the end of this transit, like I said, there may be some weeding out, but as the retrograde ends, you will meet new, more like-minded, more positive connections in the 11th house area. So, at the end of it, you will be happy. But, this next few months is going to be a little bit of testing of the people that are in your life. So for Taurus ascendants, as a Taurus ascendant or Taurus moon sign, Saturn has been moving in your 10th house of career, which is Aquarius. Like I said, it's been there since January this year. So you've already started seeing some changes around your job area, some new thoughts kind of creeping in your mind. Should I look for a different job? Should I apply for that promotion? There's a little bit of like rocking the boat going on there in your 10th house of career. But with Saturn being retrograde, it's really going to make you review and reassess that area. Is the current job that you have meeting the career goals that you had for yourself a few years ago? What happens is when we are in a job, when we take up a certain position, we kind of fall in that rut. And then it's like the day-to-day grind. We start slowly forgetting what our original career goal was, right? We are in that rut. We are day to day, it's so many things going on, meetings, this and that. We forget sometimes. So when Saturn goes retrograde, it wakes you up. It says, hey, you had this intent for your career, but you're doing this. So you need to reassess this. So with Saturn being retrograde, it's going to have you reassess where you are career-wise, where you are goal-wise. Are you feeling a feeling of restriction where you are? Should you do something better? And, sometimes there are limitations at work. You may want to break through that. And it's going to, like I said, Saturn has a way of testing the foundations of something. Do you really like what you're doing? Is this where you belong? And yes, if it passes the test, then that's it. Nothing's going to change with your career or your 10th house area. But if it isn't, it will give you new opportunities by the end of this transit. And also remember, next year, when Jupiter enters your first house, it will bring you new opportunities, luck, fortune, and a better path to career success. So I think the Saturn retrograde is just a kind of like, an early reaction to that Jupiter moving into your first house. As a Gemini ascendant, Saturn has been transiting your 9th house. And the 9th house rules luck and fortune. And with Saturn going through your 9th house, a lot of times, because it rules the areas of expansion and growth as well as travel, Saturn's transit in the sign since January has been bringing a feeling of stagnation. You have been feeling a little stuck, as if you're not able to make headway. And with Saturn going retrograde, you may find yourself having a little more of a realistic view of life, sometimes cynical, but it will be realistic view of life. Saturn is here to teach you about the boundaries, about, how to prioritize yourself over others. So how does it do that? It brings problems around you with people that you're associated with, and it will test you. It'll test you to see if you're able to manage that at the same time, prioritizing your well-being. And also, being in an air sign, Gemini being an air sign, you are constantly looking to expand yourself and others. Gemini does not like bias. Gemini does not like to say, and it's the furthest from selfish. Gemini signs, they are very giving, they're very generous. So they're always looking to expand themselves, and through that, they want to expand others. But the Saturn retrograde in your 9th house will give you almost like an opportunity to bring that expansion to yourself. And it says, it'll make you realize your limits and your boundaries, and it will change your life's direction. So, make sure you watch what's happening around you and feel the energy of what Saturn retrograde is trying to tell you, because by the end of this transit, things are changing for you. The 9th house of luck and fortune will open up in all its glory for you. As a Cancer ascendant or Cancer moon, Saturn has entered, or since January, it entered your 8th house of psychological awareness and intimacy, financial kind of investments, and shared resources. So this is your 8th house. Now with Saturn going retrograde, you will be put into situations where you have to accept change and make way for deep transformation and changes in your life. Saturn retrograding in the 8th house can sometimes delay money that has to come to you during this time frame. For example, any money that comes to you through other people, like settlements or divorce settlements or investments or inheritances, it can delay it. Saturn retrograde can delay it, but it may seem disappointing at first. But what Saturn is trying to teach you is how to better manage your finances and your money situation. It's trying to teach you some very valuable and lasting lessons here, especially considering that next year in May, Jupiter is going to enter your 11th house of great gains. Before that happens and you come into great gains, Saturn is trying to teach you how to manage these gains and how to have a better hold on your financial security. So this is a good thing that's happening. So, watch what's happening around you and try to learn from it. If you're a Leo rising or a Leo moon, Saturn is retrograde in your 7th house. This is a little more impactful for you than a lot of other zodiac signs. This particular transit in your 7th house will test your relationships, your one-on-one contractual relationships. Most of the time that's a marriage or your spouse, but it can also be business partnerships. So what's going to happen at this time is that there is heavy karma that is, coming through these relationships and partnerships, which is testing the very foundations of these relationships. So all throughout the end of summer and beginning of fall, there are these lessons that are coming through. But remember, these lessons are important to understand the other individual in your life, and karmic lessons are being disguised as these challenges. So the more you realize that, the more you are open to the change and you accept the change, you will see that you're more stronger and your relationship is more stronger than it ever was. People come out of the Saturn retrograde transit in their 7th house as much more stronger business partners or couples, and it tests it, but it also makes sure that it's secure and it's strong. Now, allowing this time, this particular transit, to examine your one-on-one relationships and letting it really work on that relationship will ensure a deeper bond and enduring time together. As a Virgo rising or a Virgo moon, Saturn is transiting your 6th house of work and health, which means you have been working very hard lately, right? Since January, Saturn's been transiting there. Now, when Saturn is retrograde, it tries to teach you more discipline to reach your goals. It's telling you you need to, look at your work goals, your health goals, and find more discipline there. Sometimes you may feel like you want to overcompensate at work. You feel overwhelmed with the responsibility of work with your co-workers or your employers. So with Virgo, as a Virgo rising, you are a detail-oriented person. Saturn in the 6th house is telling you to take a step back and let things happen the way they are happening, because sometimes there are things that you cannot control. Now, another thing is, because Saturn is in your 6th house retrograde, it will teach you that, no matter how hard you work, sometimes the results are not instant. You may have to wait. And it's also teaching you that the work itself is, in a way, the reward, right? So you may feel a little underappreciated, but Saturn will show you the best work that will make you feel appreciated and recognized. And that's what you're going to end up in at the end of this transit. It's teaching you lesson of productivity, stress management, and health. These are the areas that Saturn is really letting you focus on this time frame. Now, again, when you see health issues rising, it's usually Saturn showing you an imbalance in what you've been doing so far. You might be doing too much work. You may be overcompensating somewhere. You may be not paying attention to your health as much. So then during the retrograde, it teaches you those lessons so that by the end of this retrograde, you are much more positive, happier, and ready for the next phase of your life. As a Libra rising or a Libra moon, Saturn has been in your 5th house since January. Now, the 5th house is the house of fun and lightheartedness and love and passion. And you feel like with Saturn, the heaviness of Saturn being there, you just feel like things haven't been as fun lately. Now, there is a heavy sense of responsibility and almost like that all work, no play kind of sense around you. So Saturn going retrograde, it's encouraging you to raise your standards when it comes to this area of your life, because it's telling you, you need to take a step back. You need to rest. You need to have that break so that you can go back all fully recharged and do all the work that you want to do. But that break is very important. Now, this retrograde is also a good time to experiment with new things, new hobbies that you always wanted to do, or pick up a new project that you wanted to do. Why? Because in the 5th house, it brings that element of fun back. And, the 5th house also rules children. So with Saturn going retrograde, it brings karmic lessons when it comes to children. You may be working more closely with your kids. You may see that there are some, again, the flaws of that relationship being exposed so that you can work on it and resolve it. That's what we are here for in this lifetime. We are here to explore all of these things and resolve it. And, sometimes with Saturn going retrograde, your children may be also becoming more mature. They may be getting a driver's license, or they may be going off to college, or, any of those things. So this is very important for Libra ascendants. For Scorpio rising or Scorpio moon individuals, Saturn is in the 4th house since January, and now it's retrograde in the 4th house. Now, what is the 4th house? It is your home. It's responsibilities at home. It's a sense of responsibility towards your family, your security, your surroundings, your home base. Now, while Saturn is in this sign, it is going to show you the importance of this for you. So no matter how much of an outgoing person you were, or you always have been, Saturn in your 4th house or retrograde in your 4th house is going to pull you back home, because it wants you to feel that sense of rooting, that sense of, having that family around you, the sense of connection with your family and your extended family. So with Saturn being in the sign since January, you have been seeing this happening a lot, right? It's pulling you back home. And for good reason, because maybe Saturn feels that you have been outside too much. You need to have that balance. Now, it is going to bring a new reality into your private life. So you will see that you're suddenly having these great ideas about how to decorate your space, or how to make it more comfy and more cozy, and how to rebuild your understanding of home. Maybe you pick up gardening, maybe you do some landscaping, and you experiment with these things to, kind of root yourself and find that rooting in your life. Okay. Now, it's good because in a few months from now, when Jupiter goes into your 7th house, you will be pulled out into the outer world. You will be giving more thought to your public image. So Saturn going retrograde and pulling you back into the 4th house right now is a good thing, because it's teaching you that sense of balance, why the home is important to kind of offset that public image. Right? Now, the 4th house rules the mother, so you may find yourself automatically spending more time with your mother. And, if your mother's not around, then thoughts of your mother might surface in your mind. So, let those things happen. Saturn's bringing these things back to you for a reason. It's time to reconcile all that. So as a Sagittarius rising or Sagittarius moon, Saturn has been making its way slowly through your 3rd house. 3rd house is the house of communications, siblings, your willpower, your creative pursuits, your self-expression, everything. All of that is the 3rd house. The 3rd house does not get as much credit as it is supposed to. It's a pretty strong house for a chart. Okay. Now, Saturn making its way through your 3rd house, Sagittarius ascendant, means that you're having to reevaluate the consequences of your self-expression. It may be what you say, it may be what you communicate, it may be what you write. All of those things are being reevaluated now. How do you say certain things in the right way? How do you write something the right way? Or how do you express yourself effectively? Those are the things that Saturn is trying to teach you. And, a lot of times with the 3rd house, we tend to internalize things, because the 3rd house is an upachaya house, which means that it's like that muscle that needs to keep working, like my teacher says, right? The upachaya house is not, it's very weak in the early part of your life, but as you keep working it becomes stronger and stronger. So the 3rd house does have a tendency to internalize things. And Saturn retrograde over there will force you to bring those feelings out, work through them, resolve them, and close them. So that's what you're working on right now. Travels, 3rd house is the house of travel. So any short commutes and short travels may be put on hold while Saturn is retrograde, because Saturn really wants you to focus on the personal front at times. And your communication skills, your interpersonal relationships with your peers. Remember, the 3rd house is your peers, right? It's your co-workers, it's your cousins, it's your neighbors, it's people who are eye to eye with you, same level. So Saturn retrograde will bring a lot of learnings from these associations around you in your life. Capricorn. As a Capricorn rising or Capricorn moon, Saturn is in your 2nd house. So what is the 2nd house? It's finances, it's money, it's your wealth, it's your assets, it's your security. So Saturn being retrograde in your 2nd house, it means that it's asking you to adopt a more responsible and better attitude towards your finances. So there may be times when during this transit, you may feel like you have to invest better, or you have to save better, or maybe you have to relook at your expenses. And sometimes Saturn does bring delays in money coming to you with this placement. But I think that happens because when the money comes to you, you don't really think about how you're spending it. When it doesn't come to you, you start thinking about, what am I doing wrong here? Is there something I can do to save better? Can I get a better job? Can I do something better? Can I expand this business? It's going to make you think about those things by withholding that money sometimes. So it's not a bad thing, and it's very temporary. By the end of this transit, you will have such good money management skills. And also, with Jupiter going into Taurus next year, which will be your fifth house of, happiness and upliftment, you're going to feel like, this Saturn retrograde is doing you a lot of good right now by teaching you to be more conscious and responsible about your expenditure, because Jupiter transiting the fifth house can mean a lot of lightheartedness and fun and spending. And so Saturn retrograde is telling you, hey, let's look at all of this, let's fix all these areas, these in your finances and your security, in your financial security, so that when Jupiter goes into your fifth house next year, you are able to handle it much better. Now, at the end of this transit, like I said, you'll feel much more confident about your financial situation and your money management skills. Aquarius rising or Aquarius moon. Saturn is right there in your first house right now. It's been there since January, and it's retrograde right now in your first house in Aquarius. And what is the first house? It's the self. So what is Saturn telling you? Remember, I was telling you the words, right? It's asking you to re-examine, reevaluate, reconstruct your sense of identity. Sometimes, life gets so busy. We live in a world where it's filled with illusions. There's so much going on around us. We are constantly bombarded by the TV and the movies and the radio and the articles and the reading and the teaching, and it's just so much going on. We lose a sense of ourselves. We get lost in all of that. And Saturn transiting the first house, it's bringing that focus back to you. It's telling you, all the illusion around you, all the Maya around you, that's fine. What do you want? Who are you? What is your sense of identity? And that is the reevaluation that's happening actually for the next 2 years, because Saturn will be in your first house for 2 years. But when it's retrograde, it's even stronger. So it's telling you that, hey, you carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you always have this overwhelmingly full plate of things to do, right? You're multitasking at all times. Saturn retrograde forces you to slow down. It forces you to take a moment for yourself and reassess, are you doing what you should be doing? And do you really need to be doing everything that you are doing right now? Because sometimes, like I said, we forget and we kind of lose track of ourselves. So this reprioritizing is very important to bring you back to your center and to enjoy the transits that are upcoming in the later part of this year and next year. Because if you don't reprioritize, if you don't slow down, if you don't take this time for yourself to reevaluate, you can fall sick, because the body can only take so much. So take this time for yourself. The retrograde Saturn in your first house is a great time to learn meditation, yoga, mindfulness, connect your mind and body, and find that little bit of time for yourself to relax. Pisces ascendants, Pisces moon. Saturn retrograde is in your 12th house. Now, the 12th house is the house of your unconscious impulses. It's, those things that, you do, which you'd never realize that you're doing, right? You're unconsciously doing it. And so this is the house of hidden agendas, hidden issues. So a lot of things from the past, which you've kind of pushed away to the back of your mind and you said, I'll get to it later, that could come back. Things from the past, things, in your dreams. 12th house is the house of dreams. You may have dreams of past people, past events, even past lives. And it can bring that kind of to the forefront where you have to resolve it and think about it and kind of bring it to a closure. The 12th house does end things. So like, kids going off to college, or, the ending of a job so you can take a better job. Those kind of things can happen. And actually, I like the 12th house transit the best, because it's that time when it forces us to clean all that baggage. All the other houses are very much on the physical side. It's on the worldly side. The 12th house is hidden. And a very powerful transit like the Saturn retrograde in the 12th house is almost like a spring cleaning. It's required. You have to get in there and declutter and reprioritize. So this is a good time for you also to take some break and observe these thoughts and feelings that are coming up. Observe these dreams that are coming up. Remember them. Maybe keep a dream journal. I always tell people that when a planet is retrograde in your 12th house, keep a dream journal, because you will have very vivid and important dreams. And it's important to kind of pay attention to that energy. When you wake up in the morning, write it down so that you can go back to it and reevaluate it. And, the dreams are nothing but unresolved emotions and feelings from the past. That's what dreams are. The mind has a way of bringing it back into your conscious mind through dreams. So Saturn retrograde will bring a lot of that back. Why? Because it wants you to clear all of that baggage, because the upcoming transits next year are going to be really good for you. So, you want to be able to move forward fresh and with a lot of energy. So use this time to clean up all that. So that's my take on the Saturn retrograde for various signs. And I do hope you got something out of this. It's a very powerful transit. It will teach you a lot based on where it's happening in your chart. And like I said, you can use the chart calculator on my website. You can book a reading if you need more information about this transit. I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.